Now the presumptive nominee, Kamala Harris, has made the transition to centre stage in a single leap.
And in this campaign, I promise you, I will proudly put my record against his any day of the week.
She raised $100 million, signed up 60,000 volunteers, and won the support of Biden's delegates and the party's power brokers.
President Biden's selfless decision has given the Democratic Party the opportunity to unite behind a new nominee, and boy, oh boy, are we enthusiastic.
The Trump campaign has been forced to reorient its strategy.
Now, history will remember Joe Biden as not just a quitter, which he is, but one of the worst presidents of the United States of America. But my friends, Kamala Harris is a million times worse, and everybody knows it.
Harris's last attempt to campaign for the presidential nomination against Joe Biden in 2019 was lackluster. Her background as a prosecutor then, a liability.
Now, Senator Harris says she's proud of her record as a prosecutor and that she'll be a prosecutor president, but I'm deeply concerned about this record.
Kamala Harris is ending her presidential campaign.
Back in 2019, she didn't secure a single delegate.
My campaign for president simply does not have the financial resources to continue, and the financial resources we need to continue.
Now, if anything, the stakes are even higher. Democrats and Americans know what a Trump presidency looks like. Can Kamala Harris deliver? One of the first Democrats to go public calling for President Biden to step down as the nominee was Congressman Adam Smith. As the senior Democrat on the powerful House Armed Services Committee, he's also been involved in the AUKUS submarine program. He joined me earlier from Capitol Hill. Congressman Smith, thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate the chance.
Is it the right thing to do to anoint Kamala Harris as the candidate without some sort of primary process?
Look, we're the Democratic Party, and the way it works in our country is the party has the right to nominate who they want to nominate. You know, for, 100 years, there was no such thing as a primary. There was no such thing as a caucus. You know, the party leaders did it. Ideally, we would go through the full primary process with a competitive primary. But here, the president's health started failing after that primary process went through. So we made the right decision for the party and for the country.
How does Kamala Harris upend the dynamics of the election race?
Yeah. Well, look, the Republicans had a very straightforward message, and that is Joe Biden is weak. And they were very Joe Biden focused. Now he's gone, and the enthusiasm, I cannot begin to tell you. I have been working in politics in the U.S. here for, over 40 years now. I have never seen this level of enthusiasm within the Democratic Party. It's greater even than the enthusiasm that existed for Barack Obama back in 2008. It has just lit a fire. Look, the message has been really important to us. Obviously, we're scared about Donald Trump and what he would bring, but we're also excited about our agenda. We just didn't have an effective messenger to deliver that agenda. Now we do. So that energy has been unleashed, and it has been it's been incredible the last 48 hours.
You said that President Biden's health was failing at a certain point. Was it dishonest of the president and the people closest to him to not be upfront and honest about his health at that time?
Well, they were ultimately, in the end, upfront and honest about it, and they had him step aside when he needed to. And look, a lot of people forget that the State of the Union speech was in March, and the president gave an awesome State of the Union speech. He was energetic, he was focused, he responded. He was heckled by the Republicans in the chamber, and he was witty and quick in his response. He walked around, talked to everybody afterwards, and I think it made us all feel better that he had the energy. Now, unfortunately, after that, things started to decline, and it became noticeable. But in the end, he and his team made the right decision, and they deserve to be thanked for that.
You did a courageous thing in politics. You spoke out publicly at a time when few people were prepared to do that. What is it that made you take that decision, and when did you begin to think that that was what you were going to have to do? What was the evolution of your thinking?
Sure. Well, I'm a very practical person. And the second that debate ended, I knew the president had to step aside. I called the White House the next day and I told them, he needs to step aside. He is not up for this fight. And then, I waited for a period of time to see how it was going to play out. It became clear that at that moment they were not convinced, and I knew beyond any shadow of a doubt that he needed to step aside. I didn't have a second of questioning that we would be better off as a party and as a country if he did, so I figured I had to go make my case more aggressively, and that included being public.
Let's talk about Kamala Harris. When we saw her campaigning last in the 2019 Democratic primaries, she was reticent about her record as a prosecutor, but that was in the context of race riots and Black Lives Matter. Will we see a different Kamala Harris now?
Yeah, frankly, I don't remember the ins and outs of how her campaign went in 2020. I remember that it didn't go well. Many people have, had bad campaigns. I mean, Barack Obama, ran for Congress, and it was a disaster. He lost, I forget what year it was. He lost like 3-1, tried to take on an incumbent Democratic congressman. So, she didn't run a great 2020 campaign. I think it's very clear that she's learned from that. And what you've seen the last 4 years as vice president is a very smart, capable, and effective message deliverer and a good vice president. I point out to people I go to the Munich Security Conference every year, which is a gathering of all national security folks from around the world. Kamala Harris has been the lead spokesperson on that for the administration in the last 3 years, and she's delivered a very strong message on Ukraine, on the importance of NATO, on the importance of partnerships and alliances. So when we've last seen Kamala Harris in the public sphere, she's been damned impressive.
What does it mean for, in the end, you still face an uphill battle to defeat Donald Trump? Is she going to be effective, make the difference in the crucial swing states, and how would she do that?
Yeah, I mean, we've already drawn even just in the last 24 hours of polling. It appears that the race is now pretty much a dead heat in most of those swing states, which is a huge step forward. We're going to have our convention. We're going to make our case. People are going to see her. They're going to remember who Donald Trump was. By the way, one of the first positive things that happened for us was Donald Trump's convention speech. They were having a very unifying convention. They were talking about how they were going to bring the country back together again, and Donald Trump got up there and rambled for an hour and a half and reminded everybody of one very crucial thing. Donald Trump is still very much Donald Trump. So I'm very optimistic about our chances. Once we show the country Kamala Harris, they're reminded of who Trump is, I think we win.
Now, today, she's not going to attend the joint sitting of Congress for Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, and neither are you. Why is she not going?
Oh, she had a pre-planned event that's been on the schedule. Well, let's put it this way. Once she became the candidate, she's got to get out there and campaign. So she's going to be out there campaigning. But also, look, I mean, I support Israel. I am deeply troubled by Prime Minister Netanyahu's leadership. Let's not forget that Prime Minister Netanyahu is the one who was in charge on October 7th, who failed so miserably to protect the people of Israel because of the policies he'd been putting in place for better than a decade. And he's certainly, I think, continuing to make mistakes in terms of not being helpful in creating a Palestinian alternative to Hamas. So I think it's perfectly appropriate to criticize Prime Minister Netanyahu even as you continue to support Israel, which I'm very confident is the vice president's position.
Just finally on AUKUS, with the Navy chiefs meeting in Perth today, we saw at the Republican convention just how visceral isolationism is within the MAGA movement. Why should Australia bet on the US when a Trump presidency still looks likely?
Well, a couple things about that. First of all, democracy is what it is. It has a certain unpredictability. You can be sure that President Xi isn't going to change much and that he's going to be there for a while. I don't think that's a good thing. I think democracy is better. It gives us an opportunity to hear from all of the people, express their opinions. But yes, it does occasionally cause policy changes. So we have to be comfortable with that if we're going to continue to support democracy, number one. Number two, Donald Trump's not getting back in the White House. We're going to make sure of that here. We're going to work and make sure that doesn't happen. Number three, there will be a strong bipartisan push to support AUKUS no matter who wins this presidency. I can tell you, I don't know of a Republican who doesn't support the AUKUS agreement in the Congress, in the House and the Senate. So there will be a strong push to stop Donald Trump from doing anything to that agreement going forward.
But, no matter what the feeling is in the House, and we don't know what's going to happen in House races, if you have an isolationist president and an isolationist vice president in the form and body of J.D. Vance, will you be able to prevail?
I don't know, which is why I'm trying to make sure we're not forced into that position. Look, I'm not going to lie to you. I mean, if Donald Trump's president, it creates a massive amount of unpredictability for all of the crucial alliances that we have across the world. It's one big reason why we're going to go to the American people and say, you don't want this person in the White House. Our partnerships and our alliances are what is crucial to our deterrence. America first is really America last, the way he puts it. If we don't have partners, if we don't have allies, we will never be able to meet our national security goals and objectives. So we're going to make that case, and we're going to try to make sure we elect the right person come this fall.
Congressman Smith, I'm very grateful for the time this morning. Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks for giving me the chance.